You wake up every morning, put on the same mask, and walk into a world that never truly sees you. You laugh when you want to scream. You nod when your soul is begging you to say no. You perform a life that was never meant for you, and each day, a quiet part of you dies in silence. But you keep going, don't you? Because that's what you were taught. To please, to endure, to survive. But have you ever stopped to ask, who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when I stop pretending? The truth is brutal, yet it is the only thing that can set you free. You will suffer, not because life is cruel, not because others have failed you, but because you have abandoned yourself. Over and over again, you've traded your truth for acceptance, your voice for approval, your soul for safety. And the pain you carry? It's not punishment. It's a signal, a fire alarm from your unconscious, screaming for you to wake up. This is not a speech to motivate you. It is a call to remember. To return to the person you were before the world told you who to be. Because no matter how far you run or how much you achieve, you will suffer. Until you choose who you truly are, you keep wondering why nothing feels quite right, why every achievement feels empty, why your relationships feel like you're playing a role, and why even in a room full of people, you feel utterly alone. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because somewhere along the way, you stopped being true to yourself. The moment you started hiding your feelings to make others comfortable, the moment you silenced your instincts to follow the rules, the moment you looked into the mirror and saw someone else's expectations instead of your own reflection, that's when your suffering began. Suffering isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with tears or outbursts. Sometimes it's quiet, like a dull ache beneath your chest, a heaviness that follows you everywhere, a restlessness you can't explain. You try to drown it with distractions, success, validation, attention, but nothing lasts. The relief fades, and you're back to the same emptiness. That emptiness is your soul trying to speak. It's asking you to listen, not to the world, but to yourself. When you do not live in alignment with who you truly are, life becomes an endless cycle of compromise. You say yes when everything in you screams no. You stay when every fiber of your being begs you to leave. You shrink yourself to keep the peace. You suppress your voice to be liked. You give so much of yourself to be accepted that one day you realize you've disappeared. And what remains is a shell, functioning, performing, smiling, but not alive. The world has taught you to believe that love must be earned, that worth comes from achievement, and that to belong you must bend, mold, and twist yourself into something palatable. But the more you abandon your truth, the more you ache, because nothing in this world will ever feel enough if you are not enough to yourself. You will suffer until you are brave enough to stop running from who you really are. And perhaps the deepest suffering of all is the feeling of being unseen, even by yourself. You catch glimpses of the real you in quiet moments. When the world is silent and there's no one to impress, you remember. You remember the things you love, the dreams you buried, the voice inside you that still longs to be heard. But then the noise returns, the obligations, the fears, the demands, and once again you lose touch with the part of you that is most alive. But this suffering is not senseless. It has a purpose. It is not here to punish you. It is here to awaken you. The pain is a signal, a message, a call to return, to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. It will not go away by numbing it. It will not disappear by ignoring it. It will only stop once you listen, once you finally have the courage to say, I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of abandoning myself. You were not born to live as a watered-down version of yourself. You were not meant to carry a life that doesn't fit your soul. You were not created to make others comfortable while you suffer in silence. That voice inside you, the one that keeps whispering for something more. It's not a fantasy. It's your truth. And your truth is not too much. It's not too loud. It's not too strange. It's yours. And it's sacred. Until you are willing to honor that voice, until you are ready to make decisions from your soul instead of your fear, you will suffer. You will continue to feel the ache, the disconnection, the longing. Because your being knows when you are not living honestly, and it will keep calling you back, no matter how far you try to run. You will suffer until you choose who you truly are. You did not become someone you're not overnight. It happened slowly, quietly, over time. You learned what was acceptable, what was rewarded, what brought approval, and what brought silence, rejection, or punishment. So you adapted. You molded yourself to fit into the spaces where love was conditional. You became who you needed to be in order to survive, and in doing so, you unknowingly left pieces of yourself behind. As a child, you absorbed everything. Every glance, every word, every reaction became part of your internal map. If you were punished for being too loud, you learned to stay quiet. If you were ignored for being emotional, you learned to toughen up. If you were praised for being good, helpful, obedient, or high-achieving, you learned to wear that mask because it brought you the closest thing to love. But what felt like love was often just approval, and the cost of that approval was authenticity. And so, the false self was born. It wasn't a lie, it was a necessary adaptation. You did what you had to do to feel safe, to be accepted, to be seen. But over the years, that false self began to dominate. It took over your decisions, your relationships, your identity. You started to believe that this performance was who you were. But deep down, there's always been another you, the real you, watching silently, patiently, waiting to be chosen. You might call this the version of you that dreams differently, feels more deeply, questions more honestly, the one that doesn't fit neatly into the categories society gives. That part of you never died, it just went underground. And now the pain you feel is not because you're broken, it's because you're still carrying the weight of a self that was built for survival, not for truth. You can't build a meaningful life on a foundation that isn't your own. The problem is that the false self doesn't feel false at first. It feels familiar. It feels functional. You wear it so long it becomes second skin. But after a while, you start to sense that something is missing. You feel exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. You find yourself in rooms full of people, smiling, saying the right things, being who you're expected to be, but you're not there. You're only showing a version of you that's safe, approved, digestible. And that safety becomes a prison. You were taught to value that mask. You were praised for how well you wear it. But the more you wear it, the more disconnected you feel from your own soul. And you can't fake aliveness. You can't manufacture peace. You can't pretend your way into fulfillment. No matter how convincing your outer image is, the inner self always knows when it's being ignored. You might try to fix the suffering by changing external things, your job, your partner, your habits, but none of it works for long. Because the root of the suffering is internal. The real you is not being lived. And until you choose that self, until you begin the slow, courageous process of peeling away the mask, the pain will remain. This isn't about blame, it's about understanding. You did what you had to do to survive. You crafted a self that kept you connected to others, even if it cost you connection to yourself. That false self was once your protection, but now it is your prison. And no one else can free you, no one else can choose the real you. That responsibility and that power belongs to you alone. There comes a moment when the old self becomes too heavy to carry, when pretending becomes unbearable, when being liked matters less than being whole, when the fear of being true is finally outweighed by the pain of staying false. That moment is your invitation. That moment is the beginning of your return. You don't have to rip the mask off all at once. You don't have to know who you are completely. You only need the willingness to turn inward and say, I'm ready to remember. Because the truth of you has never been lost. It has only been waiting. And until you stop living as someone you're not, until you stop abandoning yourself to be chosen by others, you will suffer. You will suffer until you choose who you truly are. There is a part of you you've tried to bury, a side you've denied, silenced, judged, and pushed into the dark because you were taught it was wrong. Maybe it's your anger, maybe it's your deep sensitivity, maybe it's your desires, your jealousy, your ambition, your sadness, your hunger to be seen and heard. Whatever it is, you were made to believe that showing it would cost you love, so you hid it. You buried it deep inside and pretended it didn't exist. But the truth is, it never disappeared. It simply moved into the unconscious, where it now waits, unseen and unhealed, shaping your life from the shadows. What you reject in yourself does not go away, it gains power. It hides behind your habits, your moods, your sudden reactions you can't quite explain. It shows up in the way you sabotage relationships, the way you lash out when you swore you'd stay calm, the way you freeze in moments that demand your strength. The parts of you that were never accepted become the very things that control you, not because they are evil, but because they are exiled, and anything exiled becomes dangerous, not by nature but through neglect. You are not suffering because you're broken. You are suffering because you've split yourself in two. What you show the world and what you hide even from yourself. But the soul cannot be divided forever. What is buried will rise. What is denied will return, and it will keep returning until it is seen, understood, and embraced. This is the nature of wholeness. It demands nothing be left behind. We all carry a shadow, a psychological underworld of everything we've been taught to feel ashamed of. But shame is not truth. Shame is inherited. You learned to feel bad about parts of yourself that were never wrong to begin with. You learned to flinch at your own needs, to apologize for your own power, to shrink your own voice. But these are not flaws. They are signals. They are asking to be reclaimed. Until you stop rejecting them, they will keep finding ways to be heard, often in painful or destructive ways. You may think your shadow is something to fight, to defeat, to overcome. But it's not your enemy. It's your teacher. It holds your untapped strength, your forgotten creativity, your repressed truth. And the only way to make peace with it is to face it with compassion, not fear. To say to the parts of yourself you've avoided, I see you now. I'm ready to understand you. The suffering you experience is not just emotional, it's existential. Because as long as you fear parts of yourself, you will never be truly free. You will censor your words, edit your feelings, and live in constant conflict, trying to be good while suppressing what's real. But the truth is, you do not need to be good. You need to be whole. And being whole means bringing the light and the dark into oneself, with honesty and courage. You've spent so long trying to become someone you can be proud of. But what if pride isn't the answer? What if peace comes not from perfection, but from integration? From saying, I am both joy and grief, both kindness and anger, both light and shadow, and I no longer reject any of it. That is the beginning of healing. That is the end of suffering. This is not easy work. It takes effort to look at yourself without flinching. It takes maturity to admit that what you hate in others often reflects what you've denied in yourself. It takes bravery to turn inward and ask, what have I been running from? But until you do, that shadow will keep shaping your life. It will guide your choices, whisper in your relationships, sabotage your dreams, and echo in your loneliness, because anything unacknowledged must be repeated until it is brought into the light. You are not meant to live in fear of yourself. You are meant to know yourself fully, to stand in front of your own soul and say, "Even this belongs. Even this is mine." That is where the real transformation begins, not through denial, not through suppression, but through conscious acceptance. Until you find the courage to stop running from your own shadow, you will suffer. You will suffer until you choose who you truly are. There is a journey each soul is destined to take, though many avoid it for as long as they can. It's not the journey of becoming what the world wants you to be. It's the journey of becoming who you truly are. It is not a path of adding more to yourself, but of uncovering what has always been there, buried beneath years of conditioning, fear, and compromise. This path is not paved with comfort. It is not lined with applause. It is often lonely, slow, and uncertain. But it is the only path that leads you home. You may have spent your whole life climbing a mountain, only to realize at the top that it was the wrong one. The achievements that were supposed to fulfill you feel hollow. The success you were taught to chase leaves you restless. You followed the script, played your part, checked every box, yet something essential is still missing. That emptiness is not failure. It's the absence of your real self, and that absence will echo through every part of your life until you begin to walk toward it with open eyes and an honest heart. This journey of becoming yourself is not a straight line. It winds through confusion, grief, and radical self-confrontation. You will be asked to shed everything you thought you were: titles, identities, roles, beliefs. You will be asked to let go of the very things you clung to for safety, because you cannot be whole and stay hidden. You cannot be free while holding on to a self that was never truly yours. At some point, you will realize that your suffering was never random. It was the resistance to this journey. Every time you said yes when you meant no, every time you abandoned your truth for acceptance, every time you betrayed your inner voice to please others, you added a layer to the false self, and those layers became your prison. The moment you begin to peel them back, even if it hurts, something in you begins to breathe again. To become who you are meant to be is to face the parts of yourself you've ignored, to feel what you've numbed, to speak what you've silenced. It is to stop asking for permission to exist as you are. You will not become whole by mimicking others. You will not find peace by staying small. You must walk into the unknown and trust that something greater is waiting beyond the version of life you've outgrown. And yes, you will lose things. You may lose people who only loved your mask. You may lose the comfort of certainty, the illusion of control. But what you will gain cannot be measured. You will gain a sense of integrity, of clarity, of deep soul-rooted peace. You will no longer feel the need to pretend. You will no longer live in fear of being exposed, because nothing in you will be hidden. This is the quiet power of becoming whole. There is nothing left to defend. No one can do this work for you. Others may walk beside you, but only you can choose to begin. Only you can choose to look within instead of reaching outward for validation. Only you can choose to step off the path of conformity and onto the sacred path of individuation. Not to become someone new, but to return to who you always were before the world told you otherwise. This process is not a performance. It's not something you can rush or perfect. It's a slow unfolding, a constant becoming. You will fall, you will doubt, you will want to turn back. But each time you choose truth over comfort, each time you choose inner alignment over outer approval, you are reshaping your life from the inside out. You are turning suffering into meaning. You are turning wounds into wisdom. And it is here, in this deeply honest process of becoming, that real freedom is found. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to live in harmony with your own soul, to know that your thoughts are your own, that your decisions are rooted in truth, not fear, that your presence in the world is not a performance, but a living expression of your inner reality. Until you begin this journey of becoming, until you are willing to face yourself, accept yourself, and live from your inner truth, you will suffer. You will suffer until you choose who you truly are. There comes a moment when you begin to question everything, not because you are lost, but because your soul is trying to wake you up. The identity you've worn for years begins to feel tight, like clothing you've outgrown. The roles you've played no longer bring meaning. The routines that once gave you a sense of stability now feel lifeless. It's easy to mistake this moment as a crisis, but it's actually a calling. Something deeper is rising from within, asking you to live from a place you've ignored for far too long. Your mind is full of voices that do not belong to you. The voice of society telling you to be successful, the voice of your parents telling you to be responsible, the voice of your peers telling you to fit in. But your soul speaks differently. It doesn't shout, it doesn't threaten, it whispers. And for years you've turned down its volume to survive in a world that does not honor the inner life. You followed the outer map, checked every box, kept every promise, except the one you made to yourself. That promise, the one to live honestly, is the one that must now be kept. To live from your soul is not poetic, it is revolutionary. Because the soul will ask you to disappoint others, to stay true to yourself. It will ask you to leave comfort behind in exchange for meaning. It will ask you to confront your fears, not to destroy you, but to set you free. The soul does not bargain, it does not play games, it does not care about appearances, it cares only about truth. And that is why most people run from it, because truth demands the death of the false self. But the longer you resist the soul's voice, the louder your suffering becomes. You may find yourself in the middle of a life that looks good on the outside but feels unbearable on the inside. That disconnection is not failure, it is the natural result of living from the mind alone. The mind will always ask, what will they think? The soul will ask, what is real? You will suffer until you begin to answer the second question. This isn't about abandoning logic or reason. It's about recognizing that your soul holds knowledge the mind can't comprehend. Your soul remembers things your intellect has forgotten. It knows where you belong, what nourishes you, what destroys you, and what will bring you back to life. When you begin to live from this place, life stops feeling like a performance and begins to feel like a conversation between your inner world and the outer world. And that conversation is sacred. But you cannot live from the soul and continue lying to yourself. You cannot live from the soul and remain addicted to being liked. You cannot live from the soul and keep denying your own needs. The soul demands alignment. That means the way you speak, the way you love, the way you choose, must all reflect your truth. And that truth is often inconvenient. It may distance you from people who only knew you through your mask, but it will bring you closer to people who recognize you without one. When you live from the soul, your choices become clear. Not easy, but clear. You begin to know what to say no to. You begin to feel which path is yours, even when it doesn't make sense to others. You start to build a life that may look unconventional from the outside, but feels whole from within. That wholeness, that inner integrity, is worth every loss it may cost you. You may have spent years searching for something outside yourself, a teacher, a path, a philosophy to follow. But the guidance you long for has always been within you. The soul does not need to be found, it needs to be remembered. You are not becoming someone new. You are returning to someone ancient, someone eternal, someone true. That return is not a destination but a devotion, a daily choice to live from the place that never lies. And the truth is, you've always known this. You've always felt the pull, in quiet moments, in dreams, in pain that wouldn't leave you alone. You've always sensed there was more. That more is not found by doing more. It is found by listening more, listening to the voice beneath all voices, the one that whispers not what you should be, but who you already are. Until you begin to live from your soul, you will suffer. You will suffer until you choose who you truly are. The truth is, you cannot find peace by becoming someone else. You cannot escape your suffering by building a stronger mask. You may try, through achievements, praise, distractions, or the illusion of control, but no matter how much you gain or accomplish, a quiet ache will remain. That ache is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is your soul asking you to return to yourself. Not the self you've built to be loved, but the self you abandoned in order to survive. And until you stop abandoning it, the ache will not go away. Most people are taught from a young age that they must earn love by becoming what others want them to be. So they bend, they hide, they perform. They spend years crafting a version of themselves that will be accepted. But what is accepted is not real. It is a fragment, a performance, a mask. And wearing that mask every day slowly begins to suffocate you. You smile when you want to cry. You agree when your soul protests. You move through the world, disconnected from the most important thing, your own truth. Eventually something cracks. Maybe it's a breakdown. Maybe it's a moment of unbearable loneliness. Maybe it's a realization that everything you built no longer feels like home. That crack is not the end, it's the beginning. It's the first sign that the mask can no longer hold the weight of your soul. You can try to patch it, you can try to keep pretending, but if you do, your suffering will deepen, because you were never meant to live in hiding. You were meant to live in alignment. Alignment does not mean perfection. It means inner congruence, that what you say matches what you feel, that how you show up reflects what you truly believe, that your life becomes an outward expression of your inward reality. This kind of living cannot be faked. It cannot be taught in a book or copied from someone else. It must be lived, moment by moment, with honesty and courage. But there is a cost. Choosing yourself means disappointing others. It means saying no when you've always said yes. It means choosing solitude over superficial connection. It means being misunderstood. But the deeper cost is in not choosing yourself. Because when you betray yourself to keep others comfortable, you begin to vanish. Slowly, subtly, piece by piece. Until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. And so, you must make a decision. Will you continue to perform a life that is not truly yours, or will you begin the slow, sacred work of returning to yourself? Not the self that fits, but the self that is free. This work is not loud. It is not glamorous. It's done in silence, in stillness, in the quiet moments when you choose truth over image, presence over performance, reality over fantasy. There will be days when the old self whispers, begging to be brought back, because the old self was safe. It knew how to navigate the world. But safety is not the same as freedom, and comfort is not the same as aliveness. You were not born to play a role. You were born to embody a soul. And your soul does not care about being liked. It cares about being real. There is nothing more liberating than standing fully in who you are and knowing you no longer need to shrink, pretend, or perform. Nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to earn. Just the quiet, unshakable power of authenticity. This is the kind of peace the world cannot give you, and therefore cannot take away. To reach this place, you must be willing to let go. Not just of the people and paths that no longer serve you, but of the parts of yourself that were never truly yours. You must unlearn the lie that who you are is not enough. You must learn to trust the voice within even when it goes against everything you've been taught. You must walk through the fear of being seen in order to be truly known. Because at the core of your suffering is not your circumstances. It's the distance between who you've become and who you really are. That gap is the source of your pain, and only you can close it, not by fixing yourself, but by returning to yourself. That is where healing lives. That is where your power begins. You will suffer until you choose who you truly are. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more videos just like this. Thank you.